What if I told you that one single advertisement could sell 19 and a half times more than another?
Wait, 19 and a half?
Yeah, 19.5 times more. And I don't mean, comparing some massive Super Bowl television campaign to a poorly printed local flyer.
Right, because obviously that would be a completely unfair comparison.
Exactly. I mean, using the exact same budget, occupying the exact same physical space, and placed in the exact same magazine.
And targeting the exact same demographic, I assume.
Yes, all the variables are identical. 19 and a half times more sales just by changing the underlying message.
I mean, that sounds like a typo in a quarterly financial report.
It really does.
It sounds statistically impossible to anyone who just assumes that merely being visible is enough to generate revenue. But the crazy part is it is a documented reality.
Yeah, and it forces us to confront a really uncomfortable truth about the business world.
Oh, absolutely. It highlights this gigantic, often completely hidden chasm between a strategy based on assumptions and a strategy based on actual evidence. We are talking about a multiplier effect that literally dictates whether an enterprise scales into an industry giant or just, quietly files for bankruptcy.
And that staggering multiplier is really the absolute core of our deep dive today. We are focusing our analytical lens on Chapter 1 of John Capel's definitive work.
Tested advertising methods, right?
That's the one. Specifically the chapter titled The New Advertising Strategy. And, the text was written decades ago, yet it diagnosed this fatal disease in corporate communication that is, well, it's arguably even more prevalent today.
Oh, without a doubt.
So the mission for us here is to explore Capel's roadmap for transitioning a business's decision-making process from guessing to knowing.
Right, replacing all those expensive ego-driven opinions with cold, hard, traceable facts.
Exactly. And that transition is something that profoundly alters the trajectory of anyone trying to persuade an audience.
Yeah, whether you are an entrepreneur launching a startup, a marketer managing a global budget, or just, a manager trying to pitch a new initiative to a board of directors.
Because Caples is demanding that we stop treating communication as this mysterious, unpredictable art form.
He insists it has to be treated as a measurable science, a science that, if you apply it with rigorous discipline, virtually guarantees a return on your investment of time and capital.
So let's jump straight into the central tension that Caples establishes right on page 1. He states that the absolute most difficult things to discover in the study of advertising, and frankly in any form of strategic communication, are facts.
Just basic facts.
Yeah. He isolates 3 seemingly fundamental questions that every single business should be able to answer.
Okay, what are they?
First, what kind of headlines actually attract the most readers? Second, what kind of pictures genuinely capture the most attention? And third, what kind of copy is genuinely most effective at compelling someone to part with their money?
I mean, on the surface, those sound like the most basic questions a marketing department should be able to answer before their morning coffee.
Right. You'd think so.
But if you walk into any boardroom today or any creative agency, you will not get facts. You will get a tsunami of opinions.
A tsunami is the perfect word for it.
You'll get executives passionately arguing over what, looks sleek or what sounds punchy. And Caples points out that opinions are the cheapest, most abundant commodity in the corporate world.
Absolutely.
Traceable, empirical facts regarding actual human purchasing behavior are agonizingly rare.
And that's the whole premise of this chapter, right? To answer those 3 questions, not with aesthetic theory or what won a design award at some industry gala, but with rigorous data.
Yes. And Caples creates a very sharp division here. He looks at the entire landscape of commerce and categorizes advertisers into 2 distinct classes based entirely on their relationship with reality.
The distinction is brutal, but man, is it necessary.
It really is. So he describes class 1 as the scientific practitioners.
Okay.
These are the people who continually test every single element of their outward-facing communication. They don't care if an ad is well-liked.
Right, they don't care about the vibe.
Exactly. They want to know, down to the exact penny, the volume of actual business each individual asset generates. The text points to mail-order businesses, classified advertisers, and direct response department stores as the historical pioneers of this class.
Which makes perfect sense from a survival standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if a mail-order business spends $5,000 to place an insert in a catalog, they don't get the luxury of talking about brand awareness.
Nope. They either receive more than $5,000 back in physical envelopes containing checks, or they go out of business.
The feedback loop is immediate, and it is utterly unforgiving.
It forces intellectual honesty. You can't fake those numbers. But then Caples introduces Class 2, which is where the vast majority of the business world comfortably resides.
And this is where it gets interesting.
Oh, yeah. These are the advertisers who do little to no testing. They launch campaigns, spend massive budgets, and basically operate in a complete analytical void.
I read that section and immediately thought of someone standing in a pitch-dark room holding a handful of darts.
That is a great analogy.
Right. Like they know there is a dartboard in the room somewhere. They wind up, throw a dart into the blackness, hear it hit the drywall, and confidently declare to the room, I have a really good feeling about that one. That felt like a bullseye.
And everyone in the room just clucks.
Yeah. But they never actually walk over to the wall and turn on the lights to check.
Mm-hmm.
That is the operational model of a Class 2 advertiser.
Well, the Class 1 advertiser just walks over, flicks the light switch, sees the board, and adjusts their aim.
Exactly.
That analogy captures the absurdity of the situation perfectly. Operating without testing is operating entirely on blind faith. Caples actually references a booklet by someone named John W. Blake, and the title alone is an indictment.
That's the title?
Blind Advertising Expenditure.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel.
Right. Blake argues with intense frustration that there is only one legitimate justification for advertising, and that is immediate and profitable sales.
Which makes sense.
He demands to know why general advertisers, the ones selling soap or cars or banking services, don't demand the exact same immediate measurable results that the mail-order houses demand.
And this is where I actually want to push back on Caples a little bit, or at least analyze the psychology of the executives he's criticizing.
All right, let's hear it.
Because if the only justification for spending company money is to generate profitable sales, why do so many costly campaigns launch based purely on the subjective opinion of a few people in a conference room?
That's a fair question.
Why wouldn't CEO want to turn on the lights in that dark room? It seems completely irrational.
Well, it is economically irrational, but you have to understand, it is psychologically incredibly comforting. We have to look at corporate power dynamics.
How so?
In general advertising, which is usually designed to build brand affinity rather than prompt an immediate direct purchase, campaigns are frequently judged by appearance and executive approval.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. A group of senior leaders looks at a massive billboard campaign, and if the photography is beautiful and the slogan makes them feel clever, they approve it.
And then what happens if sales go up?
If overall company sales rise that quarter, maybe due to seasonality, maybe due to a competitor failing, they just attribute the success to their brilliant billboard.
So they claim the victory without ever knowing the actual mechanics of the win.
Exactly. The problem Caples highlights. Even if revenue increases, the Class 2 advertiser never actually knows the individual performance of each specific asset.
Right.
Let's say they run a national campaign featuring 12 different magazine spreads. Caples argues that it is entirely probable that almost all of the actual revenue generation was accomplished by just one or two of those 12 spreads.
That implies the other 10 or 11 pieces of creative are just dead weight. They are darts stuck in the drywall, costing money to leave them there, while the executives assume all 12 darts hit the bullseye.
Caples states bluntly that the rest could be complete duds. Mail order professionals know this as a fundamental law of nature. Finding a winning message is incredibly difficult.
It's not easy.
Not at all. But general advertising, he notes, is too often driven by what he calls literary faddists rather than actual salespeople.
Literary faddists. I love that phrase.
It's great. He makes this point that if you hire a sales force of 12 untried people, you mathematically know that not all of them will be top performers. Some will fail entirely.
That's just statistics.
Exactly. Caples asks the obvious question. Why would a business assume that 12 untried, untested advertisements would magically all be winners?
They wouldn't. So if you're listening to this right now and mapping out your next quarter's strategy, this is a moment for a severe operational audit.
Yes, absolutely.
Look at your last product launch, your last major presentation, or your current digital ad spend. Are you making resource allocation decisions based on what looks aesthetically pleasing to your internal team?
Are you prioritizing the cleverness of the copy over its clarity?
Right. Or are you building rigorous mechanisms to measure what actually prompts your audience to take out their credit card?
Because the transition from Class 2 to Class 1 requires abandoning the ego. Caples argues that general business communication desperately needs to adopt the cold-blooded, analytical, scientific methods of the mail-order industry.
Cold-blooded. That specific phrase jumps off the page because it aggressively strips away all the romance and the perceived glamour of the marketing industry.
It completely removes the mythology of the creative genius. And to illustrate why this cold-blooded approach is an existential necessity, Capel shares some deeply relatable anecdotes from his early days in the industry.
These stories are amazing.
They expose the danger of letting industry expertise substitute for actual testing.
Yeah, the interactions with the artist and the copywriter. These are fascinating because they don't sound like historical anecdotes from the 1930s.
Not at all.
They sound verbatim like conversations happening on Slack channels in modern tech companies today. I read this story about the artist who only wanted pen and ink drawings because they felt modern. And I literally cringed. I have sat in that exact meeting.
Oh, I think we all have. The confidence is what makes it so dangerous. Capels is a junior employee in this story trying to learn the established rules of the trade.
Right.
And a senior artist approaches him and authoritatively declares, pen and ink drawings are just the thing to illustrate these furniture advertisements. Pen and ink sketches are so modern they give the product just the style that it needs.
And if you are new to an industry, you hear someone use words like modern and style, and you just assume there is an underlying architectural framework to their claim.
You assume they know what they're talking about.
You assume they have data proving that consumers buy more furniture when it's drawn in pen and ink.
But they don't. And immediately following that, a senior copywriter gives him another rule regarding perfume advertisements.
Oh, this one is even worse.
The copywriter insists, we don't use headlines in these perfume advertisements. Headlines would spoil the effect. Besides, headlines are unnecessary for short copy.
Spoil the effect. It is purely about the aesthetic vibe. But my question is, why did Capels, or anyone else in the industry, defer to this? Was it just the standard operating procedure to let the creatives dictate the strategy without demanding proof?
Historically, yes. Because before the widespread adoption of direct response tracking, the only metric available was subjective taste.
That is wild.
And the author admits he initially believed these statements. He memorized these arbitrary rules like, no headlines for short copy, pen and ink for furniture, believing he was absorbing the deep, guarded secrets of professional persuasion.
But then he gets transferred into the mail order department.
Mm-hmm.
He moves into the cold-blooded arena where every single asset has to justify its own existence through tabulated sales.
And he experiences a professional shock. He realizes that the vast majority of the authoritative rules he had been taught were completely hollow.
They're just made up.
It's literally made up. The people in the general advertising industry were constantly stating mere opinions and presenting them as immutable laws of physics. Capels realizes that these so-called professional standards weren't even the consensus of a broad group.
What were they then?
They were usually just one individual's highly subjective personal preference masquerading as empirical wisdom.
This is the part of the text where Capels essentially psychoanalyzes the corporate hierarchy, and it is devastating. He explores where these incredibly strong defended opinions actually originate.
He argues that if we could actually discover the real psychological foundation of the opinions held by senior executives and creative directors, the business world would be a laughingstock.
The examples he gives are almost too absurd to be fiction.
Oh, they are painfully real.
He talks about an artist who will fight tooth and nail in a board meeting to ensure all the backgrounds in a campaign are blue. Not because blue converts better, not because blue aligns with the brand psychology.
No, of course not.
But simply because blue was his mother's favorite color.
It just highlights how deeply personal biases infiltrate professional judgment. He gives another example of a copywriter who passionately crusades for short copy, arguing aggressively that modern consumers simply refuse to read long text.
And what's the actual foundation for this deeply held professional belief?
His wife once made an offhand comment at the breakfast table saying, I would never read all that small print, and I don't think anybody else would either.
Are you kidding me?
No. So this executive builds an entire national campaign strategy based on an N of 1 sample size from his kitchen.
My personal favorite is the media buyer who allocates hundreds of thousands of dollars to run ads in a specific magazine simply because he happens to enjoy their editorial section.
Or worse, because the sales rep for the magazine bought him a really nice steak dinner.
Exactly. How many millions of dollars of corporate runway are being burned right now because a founder's spouse made a passing comment about a font, or a designer is subconsciously channeling their childhood preferences?
It's a terrifying question for any stakeholder. Capels is exposing the reality that the emperor has no clothes. Personal biases constantly parade as professional expertise, and they destroy capital in the process.
So if we accept that our own egos and our team's subjective tastes are actively harming our success, how do we correct the course? What is the actual prescription here?
The prescription is a total paradigm shift. Capel states that in planning any strategic communication, the absolute first step must be to clear the decks.
Clear the decks.
You must aggressively sweep away all opinions, all untested theories, all conjectures, and all personal prejudices.
You essentially have to cultivate a state of professional amnesia.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, if you are launching a product, you have to look in the mirror and recognize that your personal preferences are entirely irrelevant to the market. You might disguise long-form sales pages. You might think a certain social media platform is childish. You might hate the color orange.
It does not matter.
It doesn't. The market does not care about your aesthetic sensibilities. The market only cares about having its own desires fulfilled.
And that realization is the initiation into class 1. You are not the target demographic. Your opinion is a liability. Once you internalize that, you have a blank slate.
But a blank slate is paralyzing. I mean, if we've fired the art director who only uses blue and we've ignored the executive spouse, we're left with nothing. How does Capel suggest we figure out what actually goes onto that blank slate?
This is where we shift from philosophy to methodology. Capel says the next step must be to deploy a scientific method of testing the real strength of different messages to discover what he terms the right appeal.
The right appeal, that is the mechanism that drives everything else.
It is the foundational psychology of the sale. Are you selling this software because it saves the user time, or are you selling it because it makes the user look smarter to their boss?
Right.
Those are two entirely different appeals for the exact same product.
Yeah.
Now, Capels acknowledges that this preliminary testing to find the right appeal is time-consuming and difficult. Sure.
But he is adamant that getting started on the right foot, finding the exact correct psychological hook, is so overwhelmingly critical that every other consideration, from font choice to image resolution, is insignificant by comparison.
Which brings us directly back to the most shocking claim from the opening of our deep dive, the 19.5 times multiplier.
Yes, let's talk about that.
I want to spend real time unpacking the mechanics of this, because it isn't just a fun piece of trivia. It is a terrifying lesson in opportunity cost.
It is a first-hand account from Capel's own testing data. He states unequivocally that he has seen one mail-order advertisement sell 19.5 times as much volume as another.
19.5. But let's look at the controls on this experiment, because if one ad was a full-page color spread and the other was a tiny black and white classified, the data is meaningless.
Exactly. The controls are what make the findings so profound. Both of these advertisements occupied the exact same amount of physical space in the publication.
Which means the media buying cost was identical. The financial risk was exactly the same. Yes. Both were run in the exact same publication, reaching the exact same audience. Both utilized photographic illustrations of similar quality, and both featured carefully structured, professionally written copy.
So to the naked eye of an executive in a boardroom, they were identical twins. They both looked like high-quality, competent pieces of marketing.
From a design and effort standpoint, there was no distinguishable difference in quality. The sole variable, the only thing that changed, was the core message.
The appeal.
Right. One utilized the right appeal, tapping into the actual desire of the market, and the other utilized the wrong appeal.
The implications of that are staggering. Let's ground this in modern math for a second.
Let's do it.
Imagine a company allocates $10,000 for a digital ad campaign. They run the ad with the wrong appeal, and it brings in $15,000 in revenue.
Okay.
The marketing team high-fives. They achieved a positive ROI. But if they had run the ad with the right appeal, using the exact same $10,000 budget, it would have generated $292,500 in revenue.
And the true tragedy of the Class 2 advertiser is that they would never even know they missed out on that $292,000.
That's the scariest part.
They would celebrate their tiny $5,000 profit, completely blind to the fact that their subjective choice of appeal cost the company over $250,000 in unrealized revenue.
Wow.
This is why Capels argues that testing is not just a best practice, it is a fiduciary responsibility to the business.
So how difficult is it to find this golden right appeal? I mean, if the financial delta is that massive, finding the winner must be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Capels is incredibly blunt about the difficulty. He states there may be dozens of wrong appeals and only one highly profitable right one.
So it's tough.
Very. And because the stakes are so high, he makes a radical proposition regarding resource allocation. He says that if he were a manufacturer hiring an advertising agency, he would focus exclusively on their ability to find that core appeal. Yeah, he would far rather have a hastily prepared, visually messy advertisement based on the correct psychological hook than 20 beautiful, award-winning pieces of creative that feature an ineffective argument.
The core truth beats the aesthetic polish every single time. A scribbled note that solves a desperate problem will always outperform a masterpiece painting that nobody cares about.
Always. Caples pushes this concept to its extreme. He states that if his advertising agency had an entire year to prepare a new campaign, he would be perfectly satisfied if they spent 11 straight months doing nothing but testing and searching for the right appeal,
11 months.
leaving only 1 month or even just 1 week to actually prepare the final advertisement.
I have to pause on that because that timeline sounds like sheer lunacy to anyone operating in today's business environment.
Oh, absolutely.
In modern agile startup culture, where the mantra is move fast and break things, if you tell a CEO you need to spend 11 months researching before you launch a campaign, you will be fired on the spot.
Without a doubt.
How do we reconcile Caples' extreme demand for research with the modern necessity for speed?
It is a vital tension to resolve. What Caples is arguing against is moving fast in the wrong direction. Agile methodology without a tested compass is just sprinting in circles.
That's a great point.
Today, we don't need 11 months to find the right appeal because our testing mechanisms are instantaneous. Caples had to wait weeks for physical mail to arrive.
Right, the turnaround time was huge.
We can run a multi-armed bandit algorithm on Facebook and test 50 appeals in 48 hours. The principle remains identical. The vast majority of your effort must go into isolating the winning variable before you scale the budget.
So the translation for a modern operator is a massive shift in how you budget your creative energy. Before you write a single line of body copy, before you argue about hex codes and font kerning, you need to rigorously test what the customer actually wants to hear.
Exactly.
If you don't secure the right appeal first, every hour spent polishing the design is wasted labor.
Which brings us to the operational reality of the text. Caples acknowledges that pre-testing takes effort, but he fiercely condemns the executives who use the difficulty of testing as an excuse to fall back on their subjective opinions.
The text gets genuinely heated here. Caples talks about how major corporate policies, where to allocate millions of dollars, when to launch, what the core message should be, are routinely decided by the person in the room whose opinion happens to be final, even if they have absolutely no background in human psychology.
It is the classic structural flaw of the corporate hierarchy. He gives the example of a vice president who has a personal flair for writing, or a manufacturer who knows the supply chain and the production line from A to Z, but knows absolutely nothing about behavioral economics.
But they still get the final say.
Yet, because of their title, their subjective opinion on the marketing strategy becomes law.
This is what we call the hip EO problem today, right? The highest paid person's opinion.
Yes, the HIPPO problem, exactly.
The data in the room is ignored in favor of whatever the CEO thinks is clever.
Caples calls this exact dynamic a wasteful, inefficient, stupid, and disgraceful state of affairs.
He does not hold back.
He argues that compared to the rigorous, data-driven efficiency of the manufacturing floor, the advertising methods of the front office are still operating in the dark ages.
Calling the executives stupid and disgraceful is a bold move. But he backs up his anger by pointing to the Class 1 scientific advertisers who refuse to waste a single penny on theory. They enforce a rule that every single asset must prove itself on a small scale before it is ever rolled out on a large scale.
Everything must justify its existence through inquiries, mail order sales, or retail foot traffic.
Okay, so let's get into the actual mechanics of this. Up to this point, it is easy to say test everything, but how do we practically turn on the light switch in that dark room? How did the scientific advertisers of Caples' era actually do it?
Caples outlined several distinct methods. For local physical retail, the most direct method was used by department stores.
Okay, how did that work?
They would run a newspaper advertisement for a specific item, say a specific brand of umbrella, on a Tuesday. They would then measure the exact increase in sales for that specific umbrella on Wednesday, comparing it to the baseline sales from Monday.
That is simple, direct causality. I spent $50 on the ad, I count the umbrellas sold, I calculate the margin. But that only works locally. How did they test massive national campaigns before digital tracking existed?
For national brands, they utilize test cities. They would isolate small representative city newspapers and run the new copy appeals there.
Sorry.
Then they would rigorously compare the sales data in those test cities against the sales data in control cities that were still receiving the old baseline copy. Only if the new appeal caused a statistically significant measurable increase in the test markets would the executives authorize a national rollout.
It is essentially clinical drug testing applied to commerce.
Yeah.
But here's the absolute gold mine in this chapter, the key number system.
Oh, this is the best part.
I want to spend a lot of time on this concept because even though it relies on physical mail, it is the exact foundational logic of every single modern digital tracking system. It is brilliant in its simplicity.
The key number system is the invention that truly allowed advertising to transition from art to science. Caples provides a highly specific example to show the listener how it functions.
Break it down for us.
Imagine you are reading a magazine and you see a mail order advertisement for the Acme Products Company. At the bottom of the ad, the call to action tells you to write to an address. It might say, write to 200 Park Avenue, Diptyne, R17, New York, New York.
Diptyne R17. Now, if I'm a consumer in the 1930s reading that, I just assume Acme is a massive corporation with hundreds of departments, and I need to route my envelope to the right floor. I dutifully copy Dept R17 onto my envelope.
It looks entirely like standard corporate routing. It doesn't raise any suspicion. But that seemingly innocuous string of characters is a highly precise tracking mechanism.
It's a code.
Exactly. Caples breaks down the code. The letter R designates the specific publication where the ad appeared, in this case, Redbook magazine.
Got it.
The numeral 1 designates the month of the year, January, and the numeral 7 designates the specific day of the month the ad was placed.
So when that physical envelope travels across the country and arrives at the Acme mailroom, a clerk looks at Dept, R17, and knows instantly, with zero ambiguity, this customer is sending us money because they were convinced by the ad we ran in Redbook magazine on January 7th.
Exactly. And the power of the system becomes apparent when you scale it. If Acme runs a different ad in Time magazine on the same date, the key number might be Dept, T17.
Right.
If they run another ad in Time the following month, the key becomes Dept, T210.
It is so elegant. At the end of the month, the CEO doesn't have to guess which magazine is driving revenue. The mailroom clerk just counts the envelopes.
That's it.
You have a massive pile of envelopes for Redbook and a tiny pile for Time. Or, more importantly, you have a massive pile for the advertisement that used the headline, Save Money, and a tiny pile for the advertisement that used the headline, Make Money.
Caples captures the historical magnitude of this perfectly. He writes, the key number is an invention that has done as much for the science of advertising as the X-ray has done for the science of medicine.
That analogy is profound. Think about medicine before the X-ray. Doctors were just pressing on your abdomen, listening to your symptoms, and guessing what was happening internally.
They were operating purely on subjective opinion and past experience.
Exactly. The X-ray allowed them to look beneath the flesh and see the undeniable, empirical facts of the skeleton. The key number system is the X-ray for corporate cash flow.
It illuminates the unseen mechanics of human behavior. It enables the business to see exactly which dollars are working and which dollars are being wasted. It removes the executive's ego entirely.
You don't have to argue anymore.
No, you run all your potential appeals, each with a unique key number, in the same publication. You simply count the returns, ruthlessly discard the ads that don't pull their weight, and scale the clear winners.
And this is exactly what modern marketers do today, just with different tools. A UTM parameter on a web link or a tracking pixel on a checkout page is just the digital evolution of Dept, R17.
Same exact concept.
The technology has evolved, but the fundamental desperate need to attribute a sale to a specific message remains the core struggle of business. But I want to play devil's advocate here, because Caples anticipates a very loud pushback from the skeptics of his era. And it's a pushback I hear founders give today.
Okay, what is it?
A CEO might listen to this and say, this tracking is great, but I don't care about counting people who mail in coupons asking for a free brochure. Leads aren't revenue. I want actual cash in the register.
Yes. It is the eternal debate between lead generation and direct sales. Caples hits this objection head-on. He asserts that it has been proven repeatedly in properly controlled environments that the advertisements that generate the highest volume of inquiries usually generate the highest volume of ultimate sales.
But is there empirical data to back that up in the text? Or is that just Caples offering his own opinion, which is exactly what he's telling us not to do?
He brings the data. He cites Daniel Starch, a highly respected advertising analyst of the era. Starch didn't just guess. He conducted an exhaustive analysis of 5 million inquiries received by 163 different firms over a period of 12 years.
5 million individual data points over 12 years. That is not a statistical anomaly. That is a bulletproof law of human behavior.
It really is.
If an appeal is strong enough to get a massive number of people to raise their hand and ask for more information, it will invariably be the appeal that convinces the highest percentage of people to open their wallets.
In almost all cases, yes. The volume of interest correlates to the volume of intent. However, Caples is too rigorous to leave it at that. He provides a critical nuance and a severe warning about a specific type of false positive.
Yes. The professional coupon clipper. We have to discuss this menace because it completely skews the data if you aren't careful.
It will ruin your test. If you design an advertisement with a massive bold headline screaming, "Send for this free booklet," and you place a giant picture of the free item right at the top of the page, you are going to generate a staggering number of inquiries.
Oh, people love free stuff.
Your key number tracking will look like a massive success, but those leads will be incredibly low grade.
Because you aren't attracting people who actually have the problem your product solves. You are just attracting people who get a dopamine hit from receiving free mail.
Caples describes them as the men, women, and children who habitually comb through magazines just to clip coupons for free samples. If you optimize your appeal to attract them, your inquiry count will skyrocket, but your actual sales conversion rate will plummet.
It's fake data.
In that scenario, the high volume of leads is a total illusion. It does not indicate the true value of the underlying product appeal.
So this creates a paradox. We need inquiries to test the appeal, but if we offer something to generate inquiries, we risk attracting the wrong people and ruining the test. How does a scientific Class 1 advertiser thread that needle?
The solution Caples provides is a masterclass in behavioral qualification. You simply subordinate the offer.
What does that mean in practice?
You remove the giant coupon. You do not mention the free booklet in the headline. Instead, you bury the offer deep within the body text of the advertisement.
That is brilliant, because if the offer is hidden in the 4th paragraph, the only way a reader will ever find it is if they have actually read the first 3 paragraphs.
Exactly.
And the only reason they would read 3 paragraphs of dense copy is if the core appeal genuinely resonated with the problem they're trying to solve.
You force them to qualify themselves through their attention span. The people who find the hidden offer are highly qualified, legitimate prospects. And Caples promises that when you test your appeals using the subordinated hidden offer method, the advertisement that generates the most inquiries will absolutely, predictably generate the most ultimate sales.
If you are structuring your own marketing funnels today, the takeaway here is absolute, uncompromising tracking combined with rigorous lead qualification. If you are running an ad online, sponsoring a newsletter, or sending a cold email, and you aren't using a unique link, a specific promo code, or a dedicated landing page for every single variation of your message, you are flying blind.
You are.
You are a Class 2 advertiser operating in the dark. And furthermore, if your lead magnet is so sensational that it attracts people who don't care about your actual product, you are corrupting your own X-ray machine.
Tracking reveals the truth, and once you start tracking everything obsessively, patterns begin to emerge. You begin to see the structural DNA of what a scientifically validated winning campaign actually looks like. Which brings us to the final, highly practical component of this chapter.
We've covered the underlying theory, we've broken down the psychology of the ego, and we've analyzed the literal mechanics of the testing. Now we need to look at the final output. Caples deconstructs a specific, highly successful advertisement to show us his formula in action.
He highlights a campaign for a publication called Changing Times. He dissects this advertisement to reveal a specific 3-step formula that made it a massive, predictable winner.
I want to read the headline of this specific ad because even decades later, it is a masterclass in psychological hooks. The headline is, "Would you invest $7 to be $1,000 richer without risking a cent?"
It is nearly impossible to ignore. Let's break down the 3-step framework using this ad as a specimen. Step 1 of the formula is simple. Write an irresistible headline.
Would you invest $7 to be $1,000 richer without risking a cent? It hits every single cognitive trigger. It is highly specific, using exact numbers, which builds credibility. It appeals directly and shamelessly to the reader's self-interest, the desire to get richer.
Right.
And crucially, it completely neutralizes the fear of loss by stating, without risking a cent.
It isn't trying to be cute. It isn't relying on a clever pun or abstract imagery. It is a direct, hyper-compelling proposition, but a headline only buys you a few seconds of attention. Step 2 of the formula is where you must secure the logic. Back up the claim with undeniable facts in the copy.
Because modern consumers are highly skeptical. If you make a wild claim in the headline and fail to substantiate it, the reader immediately categorizes you as a scam and turns the page.
The emotional desire created by the headline must be logically satisfied by the body text. The Changing Times ad couldn't just promise wealth. It had to systematically demonstrate exactly how that $7 investment would yield a $1,000 return through the specific financial advice contained in their publication. The copy must act as a lawyer building an airtight case.
And once the case is built, we arrive at step 3, which is where the actual behavioral conversion takes place.
Step 3. Make an unbeatable offer in the coupon. You have to compel immediate action. The text details the specific offer used in this campaign. It read, "Send me a free copy of the 96-page book, 99 New Ideas on Your Money, Job, and Living, and enter my subscription to Changing Times magazine for 1 year for only $7.
That is a solid value proposition on its own. But it's the next sentence that makes it truly unbeatable.
The risk reversal is absolute, the offer continues. If not completely satisfied, I won't owe a cent and may keep the first issue and the free book, 99 New Ideas.
I want to dissect why this is so structurally powerful from a business analytics standpoint, because this is where the science of Class 1 advertising shines.
It is powerful because it entirely removes friction from the decision-making process. The headline appeals to the desire for gain, but the offer eliminates the terror of making a bad decision.
Exactly.
The reader realizes they are getting a 96-page book and a magazine issue entirely for free, even if they decide they hate the publication and cancel the subscription immediately. It feels foolish not to accept the offer.
But a Class 2 advertiser, operating on opinion, would look at that offer and panic. A traditional executive would say, "We can't offer that. We will go bankrupt giving away free books to people who cancel. The financial risk is too high."
And that is the difference between guessing and knowing. The Class 1 advertiser doesn't panic because they have scientifically tested the math. They have tracked the data.
They know the actual conversion rates.
They know with absolute certainty that while a certain percentage of people will indeed take the free book and cancel, the overwhelming majority, the people who read the compelling copy and genuinely want the financial advice, will remain subscribed. The lifetime value of the retained subscribers wildly outpaces the upfront cost of the free books.
They aren't hoping the campaign is profitable. They have x-rayed the math, and they know it is profitable. If you want to deploy this right now in your own work, the framework is timeless. Whether you are drafting a sales landing page, outlining a YouTube video script, or even structuring an email to your board of directors asking for a larger departmental budget, you can use this 3-part structure.
Hook, prove, offer.
Yes. Step 1. Hook them with an irresistible headline that speaks directly to their self-interest. Step 2. Immediately validate that hook with concrete, undeniable facts and logic. Step 3. Present a next step that removes all friction and reverses the risk, making it psychologically easier for them to say yes than to say no.
It is a behavioral framework that survives any shift in technology or medium.
So, as we pull back and synthesize everything we've explored today from Chapter 1 of Tested Advertising Methods, what is the ultimate truth we are left with? What is the core paradigm shift Caples is demanding we make?
The soul of this chapter is the realization that successful business communication is not a mystical art reserved for creative geniuses waiting for inspiration to strike. It is a rigorous, unforgiving, scientific process.
It's hard work.
It is. True growth requires the systematic, painful elimination of your own ego. It requires the humility to recognize that your subjective opinions and the opinions of your executives are essentially meaningless to the market.
Ouch. But true.
You must test specific appeals, track the data meticulously, and let the consumer's behavior dictate the strategy. The only metric that matters is measurable, profitable action.
It is about walking out of the dark room and finally turning on the lights. It is about deploying the X-ray machine for your cash flow. Caples wraps up this brilliant chapter by quoting Thomas Jefferson, which feels like a profound way to elevate the conversation.
I love that quote.
Jefferson famously said, "I read but one newspaper, and that more for its advertisements than its news."
It completely flips the modern perception of marketing. We tend to think of advertising as an annoyance, an interruption to the content we actually want. But Jefferson reminds us of the inherent value of a truly great, scientifically crafted message.
It's not a distraction.
No, when an advertisement is based on the right appeal, it isn't an annoyance. It is highly anticipated news. It is a genuine solution to a problem the reader is desperate to solve.
Which leaves us with a critical, lingering question. We know we need to find the right appeal. We know the formula requires an irresistible headline. But what is the actual spark? What specific psychological triggers make a headline so powerful that a reader physically cannot look away?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do you construct a sentence that stops someone dead in their tracks? That is the exact mechanism we will unpack and engineer on our next deep dive. What if you learned that a single tiny change to the first few words of your message could make it not twice, not 3 times, but like 19.5 times more effective?
I mean, it sounds like a typo in a spreadsheet, right? 19.5 times.
Yeah, totally.
But it is a cold, hard, mathematically proven fact. It's drawn directly from decades of relentless, obsessive data collection.
Right, and realizing that completely shatters how you look at every single thing you write. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are talking directly to you, whether you are, an entrepreneur trying to scale a business, or maybe a manager simply trying to get your team to actually read your emails.
Or even a content creator, fighting the algorithm.
Exactly. Anyone whose success depends entirely on getting other human beings to pay attention to your words. Today, we are exploring the absolute bedrock core of what makes any advertisement, pitch, or business message actually work in the real world.
Yeah, you are about to learn why guessing is your absolute worst enemy, how to scientifically test your ideas, and why the headline, those first few words, is the undisputed, tyrannical king of your communication.
Right. It's essential knowledge for anyone who wants their words to drive real-world action instead of just, vanishing into the void.
So, to set the stage for you, the source material we're unpacking today comes from the foundational texts of direct response marketing, specifically focusing on the principles laid out by advertising legend John Caples.
Okay.
We're looking at a specific chapter from his seminal work, Tested Advertising Methods, specifically the early pages, covering the myth of opinion, and Chapter 2, which declares the headline as the most important part of an advertisement.
Got it.
Now, it is crucial to understand the historical environment we're stepping into here. These sources stem from classic mail-order advertising. So we are talking about the 1920s, 30s, and beyond. Yeah, a time when people literally clipped physical paper coupons out of thick Sunday newspapers, put them in an envelope, licked a stamp, and mailed them across the country.
I mean, that feels like a totally alien landscape compared to how we operate today.
Oh, absolutely.
We live in a world of click-through rates, retargeting pixels, heat maps, instant analytics dashboards.
Right, which actually makes this material even more potent. While the medium was physical paper and, the delivery mechanism was the postal service, the underlying human psychology being analyzed here is completely timeless.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The mission of our deep dive today is to extract the unvarnished science of capturing human attention. Because the mail-order advertisers of the past were, in reality, the original data scientists.
The original data scientists. I like that.
Yeah, they operated in an environment where they couldn't afford to run vague branding campaigns that simply, looked nice to build awareness.
Right, because there's no ROI on just looking nice.
Exactly. If an ad cost $500 to run, it had to bring back at least $501 in direct measurable sales, or the company went bankrupt.
Wow. High stakes.
Very high. They needed to know, down to the very penny, exactly which sequence of words caused a human being to physically open their wallet. And the principles they discovered about human nature, attention, and persuasion, they apply with exact surgical precision to, like, a YouTube thumbnail or a cold email today.
Okay, so we have this massive 1,950% increase in sales just from changing the words. But when I look at how marketing is done today, or even how I make decisions about, a presentation at work, nobody operates this way.
No, they don't.
It's all focus groups, mood boards, relying on our gut. How did we get so far away from the actual science?
Well, the very first concept our sources hit us with is basically a brutal takedown of the modern conference room.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
It's this epic battle between subjective opinion and objective science. The reliance on subjective opinion is a profound fallacy, yet it remains, the default operating system for the vast majority of businesses today.
Right, we just sit around a table and guess.
Exactly. The text breaks this down by asking us to imagine how decisions are typically made in an agency, a corporate marketing department, or even a small startup. You have a group of intelligent, highly paid people sitting around a sleek conference table.
I've been in that room.
We all have. They are looking at a proposed campaign, and an artist speaks up and says, we should use a blue background because it makes the design pop and feels more trustworthy.
Sounds reasonable enough.
It does.
Oh.
But the text points out the hidden bias. If you were to psychoanalyze that artist, you might find they favor blue simply because it was their mother's favorite color, or because they saw a blue painting in a gallery that morning.
Oh, wow. So it's completely arbitrary.
Completely.
But wait, artists are trained in color theory and design. Copywriters are trained in rhetoric. Shouldn't we trust the experts in the room?
You'd think so.
I mean, if I hire a professional copywriter and they tell me, we shouldn't use a headline here, it ruins the aesthetic, or I prefer short copy because people have short attention spans, shouldn't I defer to their expertise?
Well, that is the exact trap Caples warns against. The text brutally reveals that the copywriter demanding short copy might just be echoing an interaction they had that very morning.
Wait, really? Like what?
Like maybe their spouse casually mentioned at breakfast. I would never read all that small print, and I don't think anybody else would either.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Suddenly, a casual, untested anecdote from one person becomes the foundational strategy for a $1 million campaign.
That is terrifying because it goes all the way up the chain of command, doesn't it?
Oh, it infects the entire hierarchy. An advertising manager might choose to run a massive, expensive campaign in a specific magazine, not because the demographic data supports it, and not because historical return on investment dictates it.
And why?
Simply because he personally likes the editorial content of that magazine. Or even worse, because the sales rep for that publication was a highly charismatic person who took him out to a lavish steak dinner.
Right, so driven by ego and perks.
Exactly. The text calls this out as entirely embarrassingly unscientific. In planning any message, the absolute first non-negotiable step must be to clear the decks of all opinions, all theories, all conjectures, and all personal prejudices.
Which is incredibly hard to do. I mean, we all think we have good taste. We all think we inherently understand what our audience wants.
We naturally assume we're representative of the broader market.
Yeah. But the text throws a massive bucket of cold water on that ego. With that statistic I mentioned at the top of the show, let's really look at the mechanics of that 19.5 times multiplier. Because my first instinct is to assume there were other factors, like maybe the weather was different or the economy shifted.
Well, the conditions of this specific observation are what make it a true scientific control. The author states they have seen one mail-order advertisement sell 19.5 times as much goods as another.
Wait, so not clicks, not vague impressions.
No, actual banked revenue. And it wasn't a case where one ad ran during the holiday shopping rush and the other ran in the dead of summer.
Okay.
Both advertisements occupied the exact same amount of square inches. Both were run in the exact same publication. Both even had the exact same photographic illustrations.
You're kidding. So everything was identical.
Everything. Both had carefully, professionally written copy.
So the layout, the picture, the timing, the audience, everything is identical, except for the specific words used.
Yes. The only variable altered was the appeal itself. One arrangement of words hit the psychological nerve of the reader, and the other arrangement missed it entirely.
Wow.
And the distance wasn't a 10% bump. It was a 1,950% increase in actual revenue.
That is just staggering.
When you internalize the fact that the difference between the right words and the wrong words can be a multiplier of almost 20, relying on the fact that your manager likes a certain phrasing suddenly seems less like a strategic decision and more like financial negligence.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture this in a different industry. It's almost like a head chef never actually tasting their food but deciding it's delicious just because the plate looks pretty or because they used expensive ingredients.
That's a great way to put it.
You can't just plate up a beautifully arranged dish, send it out to the dining room, watch the entire restaurant refuse to take a single bite, and still stand in the kitchen insisting it's a culinary masterpiece.
Exactly.
You have to taste the data.
Yeah,
the customer's reaction is the only taste test that matters.
That culinary comparison highlights the absurdity perfectly. And the mail order advertisers, they had a highly sophisticated analog method for tasting that data.
Oh, right. How did they do that before the internet?
Well, the text details what they call the key number system. This is a fascinating piece of history because it's essentially the grandfather of all our modern digital tracking architecture.
Break that down for us, because I think you and I, and pretty much everyone listening, completely take for granted how easy it is to track things now.
Oh, for sure. We just log into a dashboard and look at a pie chart.
Right. How on earth did they scientifically track individual responses using physical paper and mailmen?
They engineered tracking directly into the physical address. They used dummy departments. The text provides a really clear example of this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine an ad that says, "Write to Acme Products Copel, 200 Park Avenue, Dept. Apt. R17. Now, if you actually went to 200 Park Avenue, you would not find a department R17. It does not exist in their corporate structure.
Huh, so what is it?
It is a physical tracking code.
Oh, I see. So the string of letters and numbers is like a code for the publication details.
Precisely. It's a cipher. The letter R might designate the name of the publication, say Redbook magazine.
Okay.
The numeral 1 designates the month of the year, January. The numeral 7 designates the day of the month.
Got it.
So picture the mailroom at Acme Products. The mailbags arrive. The clerks, they don't even read the letters. They simply sort the envelopes into piles based on the department number written on the front.
That is so smart.
Right. If an envelope says Dept. R17, the company knows with absolute, undeniable mathematical certainty that this specific customer and this specific dollar bill came from the ad placed in Redbook on January 7th.
Wow.
And if they run a different ad in publication T on February 10th, the address and the coupon will instruct the reader to write to Dept. T210.
That is genuinely brilliant. They didn't have to guess if their marketing budget was being wasted. They didn't have to hire a firm to run a brand awareness survey.
No surveys needed.
They literally just counted the envelopes in the sorting room. This is essentially the 1930s version of a UPM parameter on a web link.
It really is.
When we put $source equals Facebook and campaign equals spring at the end of URL today, we are doing the exact same thing as Dept. R17.
The mechanism hasn't changed a bit, only the speed. The source material actually compares the invention of the key number to the invention of the X-ray for medicine.
That's a huge comparison.
It is, but think about it. Before the X-ray, doctors had to guess what was happening inside the body based on external symptoms. Before the key number, advertisers had to guess what was working based on overall sales trends, which are, muddy and complex.
Right, because you don't know which specific ad drove the sale.
Exactly. The key number brought harsh, illuminating science into a field that was previously dominated by guesswork and ego. By running all your advertisements, each with a different key number, you discover by simply counting the replies exactly which advertisements attract the most readers.
It's so beautifully simple.
And then, and this is the crucial, ruthless part, you discard the ads that don't produce results, and you pour all your money into running only the successful ones.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, today? Because, you probably aren't telling people to mail a physical letter to a dummy department.
Probably not.
The practical takeaway here is a fundamental shift in mindset. You must actively stop relying on what feels right. Whether you are choosing an email subject line, a title for a presentation, or a thumbnail for a video, your own opinion is heavily biased by your knowledge of the product, your mood, and your ego.
It's completely biased.
Right. So you have to set up a system to track what actually gets a response. Use A/B testing features in your email software. Send 2 slightly different pitches to 2 different segments of your client list and measure which one generates more replies.
You have to taste the data.
Taste the data, exactly. And then, as the text implies, you have to discard your favorite ideas mercilessly if the market rejects them.
Which brings us to the next logical hurdle, doesn't it?
Right, because if testing is the ultimate judge, what exactly are we putting on trial? You can't just test random words indefinitely. You need a hypothesis.
You need a structure to test against.
What are the structural components of a message that we actually need to be building and testing?
Well, if we are throwing out the opinions of the conference room and looking at the anatomical structure of what actually works, the source material explicitly lays out a formula for a successful ad.
Okay, a formula.
And it's incredibly straightforward, almost deceptively simple. It's a 3-step formula. Step 1, an irresistible headline. Step 2, facts in the copy to back it up. Step 3, an unbeatable offer.
It's a beautifully elegant sequence. It mirrors the stages of human persuasion.
It really does. And the text provides a perfect real-world illustration of this formula in action using an advertisement for a publication called Changing Times Magazine.
Okay, let's look at how they executed it, starting with the first step.
The headline they tested was, "Would you invest $7 to be $1,000 richer without risking a cent?"
I mean, even hearing that spoken out loud now, decades later, you feel a little tug in your brain, you know?
You want to know the catch.
You want to know what the catch is. It forces you to stop scrolling, or, in their case, stop turning the page.
It demands attention. That is step one functioning perfectly. The irresistible headline. Notice what it does, though. It offers a massive, specific return on investment.
$7 for 1,000.
Right. And it immediately attempts to neutralize the fear of loss without risking a cent. But a headline that aggressive naturally creates a psychological reaction.
Yeah, my immediate cynical thought is, this is a scam. Nobody gives you $1,000 for $7.
The writers knew you would think that. That skepticism is exactly why step 2 is so critical. Facts in the copy to back it up.
Okay.
If the advertisement had just repeated the headline's promise over and over, you would throw it away.
Totally. I'd be like, whatever, this is fake.
Instead, they provided a dense, bulleted list of actual, tangible advice contained within the magazine. They listed things like how to save $600 a year on your driving costs, or a way to save $25 a day just for family lodging.
Ah, so they break the $1,000 down into believable chunks?
Yes. They pivot from emotion to logic. These are concrete facts that prove the magazine can actually deliver on that grand $1,000 promise.
Okay, that makes sense.
It satisfies the logical, analytical part of the brain that was just activated and made defensive by the emotional headline.
Right, so they hook you with the crazy headline. They prove they aren't full of hot air by giving you the mathematical facts. But then you still have a massive hurdle. You have to get the person to actually do the thing.
Yes, to reach into their pocket, find a pen, fill out a form, and commit.
Which brings us to the final hurdle, step 3, an unbeatable offer.
Exactly. The source highlights the specific coupon text for this ad. It didn't just say, subscribe now, which implies work and commitment.
Right.
It said, send me a free copy of the 96-page book and enter my subscription to Changing Times Magazine for 1 year for only $7. Money back guarantee. If not completely satisfied, I won't owe a cent and may keep the first issue and the free book.
Wow. They literally reversed all the risk onto themselves. You get free stuff immediately, and if you don't like the magazine, you don't pay them, and you still keep the free stuff.
Psychologically, they've made it actually harder to say no than to say yes.
They removed all friction from the transaction.
They did. However, the source material includes a very important counterintuitive warning here when it comes to constructing these unbeatable offers.
Oh, what's the warning?
It introduces the danger of professional coupon peppers.
I found this part deeply fascinating. Because you would think if the ultimate goal of direct response is to get the maximum number of responses, you should just take that free booklet and scream about it in giant red letters at the top of the page, like, free booklet.
Logic would definitely suggest that, yes. More people want free things than want to pay $7. But the advertisers tracking the DEPT R17 data noticed a troubling pattern.
What was it?
If they put a picture of a free booklet at the very top of the page with a massive headline saying, send for this free booklet, the mailroom would be flooded with responses.
Oh, it worked.
Well, they got a massive quantity of leads, but they were incredibly low-grade leads.
Meaning what? They were people who just liked getting free mail.
Exactly. The text notes there is an entire subculture of people, men, women, and children, who would go through magazines simply clipping coupons to get free samples.
No way.
With absolutely zero intention of ever buying the core product. They just wanted the dopamine hit of receiving a package.
That is wild.
If you make the free offer the loudest part of the ad, you attract this specific demographic, and your conversion rate from an initial inquiry to an actual paying sale plummets to near zero.
This is blowing my mind because it is exactly what happens on the internet today.
Oh, 100%.
If you run a Facebook ad offering a free iPad just for clicking a link, you will get 10,000 clicks in an hour. But none of those people are going to buy your B2B software.
No.
You've just trained the Facebook algorithm to go find you more people who want free iPads.
Yeah.
You literally ruin your own data pool with freebie seekers.
The mechanism of human intent versus human greed remains unchanged. Therefore, the source dictates a vital rule for the three-step formula. When testing, you must keep the booklet offer or the free sample offer subordinated.
so hide it.
It should be hidden deep in the copy or placed in a small, unassuming coupon at the bottom corner of the page.
Oh, I see.
That way, the only people who discover the free offer are the people who were genuinely interested enough by the core headline and the factual copy to read the entire advertisement.
By hiding the reward, you act as a filter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those readers are your real buyers.
I want to challenge this formula a bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Let's step away from selling magazines or consumer products. I'm struggling to see how this translates to, like, a corporate environment. Let's say I'm an IT director. I am not selling anything. I am just trying to get my team of 200 employees to adopt a new, highly annoying software protocol.
Okay, tough crowd.
Or let's say I'm an analyst pitching a new workflow to my boss. Does this three-step mail order formula, headline, facts, unbeatable offer actually apply to me?
That's a tougher scenario because, as you said, you don't have a literal product, and you certainly can't offer your boss a money-back guarantee on a workflow protocol.
Right.
But let's look at the underlying psychology. The mechanics are identical because human resistance to change is identical. Let's try to translate it to your IT director example. Step 1, an irresistible headline. What is the usual subject line an IT director sends out for something like this?
Oh, usually something terrible like mandatory update, software protocol, Q3 implementation guide.
And how fast do you delete that?
Instantly. I'll wait until IT personally messages me to do it.
Exactly. It's completely ignorable. It has no self-interest. To apply step 1, the subject line needs to promise a benefit. Something like, how our new protocol will permanently eliminate your Friday data entry tasks.
Oh. Okay, I would definitely open that. That is an irresistible promise to an overworked employee.
Right. But then they are going to be skeptical, aren't they?
Definitely. They'll think IT is just making my life harder. This won't actually save me time.
Which brings us to step 2, facts in the copy. Your email shouldn't just be a wall of corporate jargon about server security. It needs bullet points proving the headline.
Like what?
The new system autofills client data from your previous logs. It integrates directly with your Google Calendar. It eliminates the need for manual TPS reports at the end of the week.
Okay, yeah. You are providing the logical, mechanical justification for the promise you made in the subject line.
Exactly.
I see. But what about step 3? The unbeatable offer. I can't give them a free booklet or reverse the financial risk.
What is the internal equivalent of a guarantee?
I'm not sure.
It's the removal of effort. Your offer is the call to action. Instead of saying, please read the attached 50-page PDF manual and ensure full implementation by 5 p.m. Friday, which is a terrible offer, you make it unbeatable.
How?
You say, click this one link to watch a 90-second video that sets it up automatically in the background, and if you hit any snag at all, click here, and IT support will remotely take over your screen and do it for you.
Oh, wow.
See? You've hooked their interest with time saving, provided logical reasons how it works, and made the actual physical action incredibly easy.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the practical takeaway for your daily life is that before you hit send, before you publish a post, or before you walk into a presentation, audit your message against these 3 pillars.
Yes.
Do you have a hook that actually makes them care?
Yeah.
Do you have the concrete, logical facts to back up your big emotional claim? And have you made it stupidly, frictionlessly easy for them to take the next step?
If one of those pillars is missing, the whole structure of your message is going to collapse under the weight of human apathy.
It will collapse. But here's the fascinating twist in the source material. Of those 3 pillars, the text makes it abundantly clear that they are not created equal.
No, they are not.
They do not carry equal weight in the success of the message. In fact, Chapter 2 is entirely dedicated to the absolute supremacy of the first pillar,
The undisputed king.
the headline. The text seems completely obsessed with it. It basically argues that if you get the headline wrong, the other 2 steps don't even matter. Why is the headline doing all the heavy lifting?
The text lays out a brutal reality regarding the distribution of impact. It states that, based on thousands of keyed inquiry returns, the headline is responsible for 50 to 75% of the advertisement's total success.
That is wild.
Let that sink in. More than half the battle, sometimes 3/4 of the battle, is won or lost in the first dozen words. And to understand why it holds so much power, you have to deeply empathize with the environment of the reader.
Well, the text mentions that a single headline in an average big-town newspaper is competing with roughly 350 other news stories, articles, and advertisements.
Just in one paper.
Yeah, 350 things fighting for your eyes at once. And that was considered overwhelming decades ago. Think about a modern feed on your phone.
Right.
You aren't competing with 350 static articles. You were competing with thousands of highly engineered posts, videos, texts, and push notifications every single hour of the day.
The competition for attention is exponentially higher now, which makes the headline even more critical. The source describes the headline as the telegraphic message that the advertiser puts into big print.
I love that phrasing.
It doesn't compete in space, it competes in time. Because it is seen for a fraction of a second as the eye scans down the page, it is either heated or it is passed up.
And if it's passed up.
If it is passed up,
Yeah.
there is no return by the reader. They don't come back. The
Yeah.
finest copy in the world, the most mathematically rigorous facts, the most unbelievably generous offer, they all effectively do not exist if the headline fails to stop the reader's eye.
I'm struggling to understand a specific example the text gives of a spectacular failure, though.
Okay, which one?
It mentions an ad for a business training course that used the headline, "The Years That the Locust Have Eaten."
Ah.
And the text says the client loved it, the agency loved it, it was praised for its writing. If the writing is beautiful and poetic, shouldn't that intrigue people and keep them reading? Why did it fail so badly?
Well, it's a profoundly solemn, literary-sounding line. It's an essay on human failure, dealing with the punishment of wasted years and lost opportunities.
That sounds very poetic.
It was so highly regarded internally that it was actually reproduced in advertising textbooks of the era as a classic example of fine writing.
Wow. But it bombed.
It bombed spectacularly. When it came to the only metric that matters, actually getting people to clip the coupon and sign up for the business course, it brought in a fraction of the leads compared to standard, less beautiful ads.
Oh, wait. I think I get it. It's like fishing, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, you can have the best bait in the world. That's your copy, your facts, your amazing product. But if you cast your line into a puddle where there are no fish, or if you use a lure that is so weird and confusing that it actually scares the fish away, the bait doesn't matter.
The fish never gets to the bait.
Exactly. The headline is the lure. A literary quote about locusts might be a beautiful piece of art, but it's a terrible lure for someone looking to advance their business career. It catches the wrong eye, or no eye at all.
That is an incredibly apt analogy. The text analyzes exactly why the locust lure failed. First, the headline fails to promise a benefit. It offers the reader nothing in exchange for their time.
Right.
Second, the picture was just a drawing of a locust, which offers no reward or clarity. It relied purely on emotion and literary value.
It assumed the reader, flipping through a newspaper on their way to work, wanted to stop and read a depressing essay, rather than looking for a clear solution to their own immediate financial problems.
It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the reader's mindset. And the text provides a perfect contrast to the locust failure with a legendary success story from Bruce Barton.
Right, he was one of the most famous advertising men in history.
Yes. He was writing ads for a correspondence school, and he tested two headlines. The first, older headline was, John Smith made $25,000 the first year writing motion picture scenarios.
Now, keep the historical context in mind. $25,000 in the 1920s was a massive, life-changing fortune.
It's the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars today. You would logically think that promising a massive fortune is the ultimate benefit-driven headline.
Right, it's a huge promise, but the text says it failed.
It did. So Barton changed the headline to this. John Smith sold his first motion picture scenario for $140 1 month after completing this course.
And the text says this new headline drew enormously. The explanation of why is fascinating. It wasn't about the size of the promise, it was about the psychology of believability.
This is where we get into the deep cognitive mechanisms of the reader. Why did a promise of $140 vastly outperform a promise of $25,000? As the text notes, every reader could imagine himself making $140, but few could imagine themselves making $25,000.
But don't people buy lottery tickets? I mean, people love dreaming of millions.
They do, but a lottery ticket requires no effort. A correspondence course requires months of hard work and study.
Ah, that's the difference.
When you ask for effort and the claim is too big, the reader's cognitive defense mechanisms immediately deploy to protect them from looking foolish.
They see $25,000, and their brain instantly says, that's impossible for someone like me. This is a scam. I'm turning the page.
It triggers cognitive dissonance. But $140, that bypasses the defense mechanism. It's just enough money to be exciting, maybe pay a few pressing bills, and crucially, it feels completely realistically attainable.
It's the difference between telling someone they can lose 50 pounds by tomorrow versus telling them they can feel less bloated by Friday. One makes you roll your eyes and keep scrolling. The other makes you lean in and say, okay, how? So the practical takeaway for the listener here is about resource allocation.
Yes.
You need to spend a heavily disproportionate amount of your time on your headline, your email subject line, or the opening 5 seconds of your video. If you spend 3 hours writing a brilliant proposal and then spend 3 seconds slapping a generic title on it right before you hit send, you have your priorities completely backward.
You do.
Because if that title fails, your 3 hours of hard work effectively ceases to exist.
That is the harsh, unavoidable truth of communication. The text even quotes a veteran copywriter saying they will spend hours on the body copy, but days, if necessary, crafting the headline.
Days on a single sentence.
Because they know that when you finally land on a great headline, the task is nearly finished. The momentum of a great hook carries the reader through the rest.
Okay, so we know the headline is the undisputed king. We know it has to be believable, and we know it has to stop the reader's eye. But the source material doesn't just leave us with abstract theory about believability, does it?
No, it actually categorizes the data.
Yeah.
It gives us a hierarchy of headlines that are proven to work.
Yes, Chapter 2 meticulously breaks down the 3 classes of successful headlines, based entirely on those keyed, trackable mailroom returns.
They are, in order of effectiveness. Number 1, self-interest. Number 2, news. And number 3, curiosity.
Let's unpack the absolute best one first. Self-interest. The text says the absolute best headlines are those that appeal directly to the reader's self-interest, headlines that offer the reader something they inherently want.
And there is a phenomenal A/B split test in the text about an English grammar course that perfectly illustrates how subtle yet powerful this distinction is.
Right.
This is one of the most famous split-run tests in advertising history, and it perfectly isolates the variable of self-interest.
Okay, break it down for us.
They ran 2 ads for a mail order course in English grammar. Both ads had the exact same general appearance. Both had the exact same body copy appeal. The only difference was the headline.
What were they?
Advertisement A was, "Are you afraid of making mistakes in English?"
Okay.
Advertisement B was, "Do you make these mistakes in English?"
I mean, they sound almost identical on the surface.
Yeah.
They're both asking a question about English mistakes. But the text reveals that the second one, "Do you make these mistakes?" brought in a vastly larger number of inquiries and sales. I'm trying to put my finger on why that one word makes such a difference.
Let's analyze the psychological posture of each. Look at the first one. Are you afraid of making mistakes in English?
Yeah.
The text points out that this headline fails to suggest to the reader that there are interesting blunders described in the text below. It sounds heady. It sounds like a lecture.
Right.
It suggests that the copy below is just going to be a dry sales talk for a boring book on grammar. And as the text asks rhetorically, who wants to read a sales talk?
No one. It feels accusatory, too. Are you afraid? It's like someone pointing a finger at you, trying to make you feel insecure. My natural reaction is to say, no, I'm not afraid, and walk away.
You get defensive. Now look at the winner. Do you make these mistakes in English?
Okay.
The text argues that the word "these" is the magic hinge, because "these" implies a specific list. It says, in effect, to the reader, there are described below certain blunders in English. Read the copy and see if you make these specific blunders.
Oh, it's a massive psychological shift.
Yeah.
It suddenly arouses curiosity and self-interest.
Exactly.
You aren't being lectured by a professor. You're being invited to take a little quiz. You want to read the mistakes to see if you are guilty of them.
Or, as the text hilariously points out, you might read it to find entertainment and self-satisfaction in reading about the blunders of other people.
Huh. Right, so you can sit back and say to yourself, well, I would never make such silly mistakes.
Either way, it offers free information and entertainment just for reading the ad.
That is the very core of self-interest. It offers the reader a reward entertainment, a quiz, a feeling of superiority just for reading the ad, regardless of whether they ever buy the product.
The text then contrasts this laser-focused self-interest with the absolute worst kind of headlines. And this is a trap that even massive, highly sophisticated, well-funded companies fall into today.
Oh, the meaningless headlines. The text lists some real examples from actual magazines of the time, and they are baffling.
They really are.
Things like, youth cries unto youth, blow hot, blow cold, nothing I like. Just one question, please. What are these even trying to accomplish?
The text calls them out viciously. It challenges the reader. Test these headlines yourself. Do they give news? Do they offer you anything you want? Do they arouse your curiosity? No, absolutely no.
Right.
They offer the reader not a single solitary thing in return for the time it takes to read them.
Why do professional writers create them then? If they don't work, why do we see them everywhere?
The source suggests it's because some advertiser or agency, through a convoluted process of reasoning known only to themselves in that conference room we talked about earlier, decided that these were clever headlines.
What?
Often the creator will defend them by saying, "But you have to read the whole ad. See how beautifully the headline ties up with the closing paragraph of the copy."
Oh, I've heard that excuse before.
To which the text responds with utter disdain. This is laughable. What reader cares how well the headline ties up with the copy? Do people read advertisements backwards? No.
That is such a critical, often missed point. People do not read backwards. If the headline doesn't make sense on its own, standing completely alone, they never get to the punchline at the bottom of the page.
The writer assumes that judging a headline requires reading the copy because that's how they wrote it. But the public doesn't work that way. The public reads the headline, judges it in a split second, and moves on.
Wow.
The text gives an example of a life insurance ad that used the headline, "It's sure, it's permanent, it's all mine."
Which means absolutely nothing until you read the fine print and realize they are talking about a retirement annuity. It could be an ad for a diamond ring or a tattoo, for all I know.
Exactly. It forces the reader to do the work of figuring out what the ad is about. And the text compares that meaningless, vague headline with what it calls a homely but effective mail order caption. "Corn gone in 5 days" or "money back."
I love that one. Corn gone in 5 days.
Ah.
It's so incredibly unglamorous, it's practically ugly. But the text analyzes why it is an absolute masterpiece of communication.
Consider the sheer efficiency of it. The text says, there's a headline that stands up on its hind legs and talks to its audience in a language they understand.
It instantly isolates the exact specific person who needs the product, the person with foot trouble.
Right. If you don't have a corn, you ignore it, which is fine, because you weren't going to buy the cure anyway.
Exactly.
For the person who does have foot pain, it offers a specific timeline, in 5 days, and it offers a guarantee. Or money back. The text imagines the reader reacting. "Better yet," he says, or "money back." "Sold," he cries.
So corn gone is essentially the emergency room sign of advertising.
That's perfect.
Think about it. When your foot is throbbing with pain or when your business is losing money, you don't want a clever poem about the historical journey of feet. You don't want an abstract, mysterious statement like, "It's sure, it's permanent."
No, you don't.
You want a giant glowing red sign pointing directly to the cure, and you want it fast.
That is exactly the mindset. When people are in pain or when they have a strong, immediate desire, they do not want poetry. They want a clear, direct, highly believable promise of relief or satisfaction. And that brings us to the other two types of successful headlines: news and curiosity.
Right. News is ranked as the second best approach.
The text notes that department stores use news headlines heavily and effectively. New features of the Ford truck, or discovered a new kind of hand cleaner.
Okay.
Human beings are naturally biologically drawn to what is novel. If you have a genuinely new product or a significant new improvement, the text advises to announce it in a big, bold way.
But what if your product isn't new and you are struggling to find a strong, unique, self-interest angle?
That's where people inevitably lean on curiosity, which the text warns is the third best and, frankly, the most dangerous tool in the box.
It is highly dangerous because, as the text states plainly, for every curiosity headline that succeeds in getting results, a dozen will fail.
Yes.
Why does it feel so often? I mean, clickbait is entirely based on curiosity, and people click on that all the time.
They might click, but curiosity alone is rarely strong enough to sustain a reader's attention through an actual sales pitch or a complex argument. If a headline just asks a weird question but offers no underlying value, the reader's mind satisfies the momentary itch and moves on.
Right, they bounce.
The text gives a great example of the right way to do it, combining curiosity with self-interest to make it work.
How does that look?
A purely curiosity headline might be, "How I did a fool stunt." It might get some readers who just want a funny story. A purely self-interest headline might be, "How I became a star salesman." It will get the right prospects, but it's a bit dry. Okay.
But the headline that actually sold a massive number of courses was the combination, "How a fool stunt made me a star salesman."
It has the bizarre hook of the weird story, the fool stunt, but it anchors it with a promise of a tangible, highly desirable benefit at the end of the story. I love that.
It worked beautifully.
So the practical takeaway for you, the listener, as you sit down to write your next email, presentation, or ad, is to ruthlessly evaluate your headline or opening hook by asking one simple question: what is in it for the reader?
Always ask that.
Look at the words you just wrote. If your headline relies solely on being clever, if it is vague, if it forces the reader to guess what the message is about, it's like, don't. Delete it. Rewrite it to promise a specific benefit. Look for your corn gone in 5 days angle. Don't be smart, be clear.
The urge to be clever is the enemy of being understood.
Okay, let's tie all of these threads together. We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the ego-driven dangers of the conference room opinion to the undeniable cold, hard power of the key number tracking system. We've broken down the three-part formula of the irresistible headline, the factual proof, and the unbeatable, friction-free offer.
And we've dissected exactly why the headline is the king of the page, and why self-interest is the crown it wears.
If we synthesize all this into a single overarching insight, the soul of this entire chapter, and really the foundational truth of all effective human communication, is a humbling realization of who your audience actually is.
Right.
Your audience is busy, they are overwhelmed, they are bombarded with a constant hurricane of information. And fundamentally, they are completely tuned into their own self-interest. They are not walking around looking for opportunities to appreciate your clever wordplay or admire your graphic design.
No, they are walking around thinking about their own immediate problems, their own aching feet, their own desire for a promotion, their own fear of looking foolish in front of their boss.
Therefore, your only job, and the text demands that you prove you are doing this through relentless testing, not guessing, is to stop them in their tracks. You must intersect their self-interest with a believable, crystal-clear promise of value right at the very top of your message.
If you do that, you have a fighting chance. If you fail to do that, you're just whispering in a hurricane.
Well said.
That brings us right back to that dummy department code, DEPT R1-7. We like things to be visible. And thanks to those obsessive mail-order data scientists, we know that human attention isn't some muddy, mysterious, artistic thing. It is highly predictable. It is driven by self-interest, and it can be captured if you use the exact right lure.
Exactly.
Now that you know the headline is the undisputed king of your message, you are probably wondering exactly how to write a great one. Well, next time we're going to crack open the actual formulas, the exact words and psychological triggers that practically force people to drop everything and read what you have to say. So, I want you to imagine something for a second. What if you spent weeks, or maybe even months, writing just an absolute masterpiece?
Oh, yeah, like pouring your entire soul into a project.
Exactly. You have painstakingly polished every single paragraph, you've sourced every fact, and you've spent days perfecting the structure.
Right, doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, but then a single, 10-word sentence dictated whether anyone on earth would ever actually read the thing.
It is a pretty brutal reality, honestly. We all like to think that the quality of our ideas will just, speak for themselves.
Sure, the whole build it and they will come mentality.
Right, exactly. But in the real world, the gatekeeper to your best work is almost always just a fraction of a sentence.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we are going to explore today in this deep dive. We are looking at the undeniable, honestly, kind of scary power of the headline.
Yeah, uncovering exactly what makes a reader or a viewer or just a potential customer stop scrolling and actually start reading.
Right, and we are basing this on rigorous, tested science from classic advertising methods. So, whether you are an entrepreneur writing sales copy or just a professional sending a crucial email, this stuff matters.
Oh, absolutely. Even if you are a creator agonizing over a YouTube video title, mastering these timeless principles, like understanding why self-interest completely trumps curiosity, that will fundamentally change how you capture attention.
So we have this text today, and it throws out a statistic right out of the gate that is just wild. It claims that the headline accounts for 50 to 75% of the effectiveness of any piece of writing.
Yeah, half to 3/4 of your success hinging on just a few words.
Right. And my immediate reaction to that was total skepticism. Like, how do you even isolate that metric? How do you prove a headline is doing 75% of the work?
Well, so you measure it by looking at split tests. This is where the body copy remains entirely unchanged, right? And literally only the headline is altered.
Oh, I see. So keeping the variables strictly controlled.
Exactly. And when mail-order advertisers did this, back in the day, tracking the exact number of physical coupons cut out and mailed back to them, they saw response rates swing by 50 to 75%.
Wait, really? just from changing the title.
Yeah, sometimes even more than that. And the reason that number is so astronomically high is because of the headline's single, uncompromising job.
Which is what? Exactly.
Its job is not to sell the product, actually. And its job is definitely not to summarize the story. Its only job is to pick out readers from a massive sea of apathy.
A sea of apathy. I like that. You were basically talking about a war zone for attention.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, the sources mentioned competing with, like, 350 news stories and countless other advertisements in a daily paper. And today, on a social media feed, it is closer to, what, 3,500 distractions an hour?
At least, yeah.
Oh.
Which completely amplifies the bottleneck. The reader's attention is involuntary, and it is fleeting. They are just scanning.
Right, the endless scroll.
Yeah. So in that split second, your hook is either heated or it is passed up. And if it gets passed up, well, there is no second chance.
You just lose them forever.
Exactly. The greatest prose ever written by human hands might as well be buried in a landfill at that point, because nobody is ever going to see it.
Wow. Okay, let us ground this in a real-world disaster from the text, because I love this example. There was a correspondence school running an advertisement to sell a writing course.
Oh, the John Smith ad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So their original headline was, quote, John Smith made $25,000 the first year writing motion picture scenarios. And it completely bombed.
Total failure.
Yeah. So they changed the headline to, quote, John Smith sold his first motion picture scenario for $140 1 month after completing this course. And the results just skyrocketed.
And keep in mind, they did not change the course itself. They didn't change the price or the curriculum.
It's just those specific words.
Right. And the contrast there is so fascinating because it totally defies the conventional logic of, bigger is better.
Yeah, you would assume promising someone $25,000, which was a staggering fortune in the era this was written, would generate way more interest than a paltry $140.
You would think so, right? But it actually repels them.
I was looking at that through the lens of like a gym advertisement today. If an ad promises that I am going to look like a peak era bodybuilder in 7 days, I do not even register it.
Right. You just scroll right past.
Exactly. My brain's skepticism filter immediately flags it as physically impossible, so it literally becomes invisible to me.
Yeah.
But if the ad promises I will drop 2 pounds this week, I click.
Because it feels real.
Yeah. The skepticism filter activates based on scale. $25,000 for a beginner with zero experience triggers that same physics-defying skepticism. It just sounds like a total scam.
That is a great analogy. The $140 figure succeeds because it bridges what we could call the imagination gap.
The imagination gap.
Yeah, so every single reader looking at that second ad could mentally visualize themselves making $140. It is a tangible, attainable stepping stone.
They can actually picture the check in their hands.
Exactly. And they can picture doing it quickly, right? The ad says 1 month after completing this course. But the leap of imagination required for 25 grand is just too vast.
It's too much to process.
Right. The average person simply assumes the ad is either a flat-out lie or it is for someone much smarter and much more talented than they are, so they self-select out.
They disqualify themselves before even reading the pitch. So practically speaking, if the headline dictates 50 to 75% of the outcome, writers should be dedicating 50 to 75% of their time just to crafting it, right?
Logically, yes, they absolutely should. And experienced copywriters, once they start tracking their actual results, they often spend days on a single headline.
Days, wow.
Oh, yeah. They know that once they secure the right hook, the task is basically finished. The body copy is merely fulfilling the promise that the headline already made.
But, okay, if believability and attainability are what actually get people through the door, why do so many writers default to trying to sound like, I don't know, Shakespeare?
Oh, that is such a common problem.
There is this massive disconnect, right? When people do spend time on their headlines, they often try to be artists instead of communicators. They want to be profound.
We see this constantly. It is the trap of literary value versus actual appeal. Writers want to be perceived as clever or sophisticated.
They're writing for their own ego?
Exactly, or for the approval of their peers rather than for the actual end user who needs the product.
The most glaring example of this in the text is an ad for a business training course. The headline was, quote, "The years that the locust hath eaten."
Ah, yes, the famous locust ad.
Right. It is a quote from the book of Joel, and apparently advertising peers thought this was just a total masterpiece. It was praised in textbooks, the salesman loved the solemn tone of it, the client loved it.
Everyone loved it except the people supposed to buy it. It brought in almost zero inquiries.
Literally zero. The public completely ignored it. Let us psychoanalyze why that fails so miserably. First of all, it is an incredibly depressing image.
Very gloomy.
Yeah, you trying to sell a course for professional advancement, right? And your hook is a gloomy insect and a biblical lamentation about wasted time.
Right. It focuses entirely on a negative human failure. It reminds the reader of their deep regrets without immediately offering any sort of lifeline.
It just makes them feel bad.
Exactly. But the absolute most fatal flaw is that it promises zero benefit. A businessman flipping through a magazine is not looking for poetic reflections on mortality,
No, he is looking for a promotion.
He is looking for actionable solutions, progress, and profit.
So contrast The Locust Hath Eaten with another split test from the sources. This one is brilliant. Headline A was, Are you afraid of making mistakes in English? And headline B was, Do you make these mistakes in English?
And headline B utterly crushed headline A in sales.
Crushed it. And the visual presentation and the body copy were identical.
Entirely identical. The only variable was that headline.
The psychological pivot here is just incredible to me. Look at headline A. Are you afraid of making mistakes in English? Asking someone if they are afraid puts them immediately on the defensive.
Right. Nobody wants to admit they're afraid.
Exactly. It is abstract, it is slightly insulting, honestly, and it sounds like a tedious grammar lecture is coming. But headline B, do you make these mistakes in English? The word these fundamentally alters the entire dynamic.
It really does. It creates a specific categorized threat in the reader's mind. The word these implicitly tells the reader, hey, there are concrete specific blunders listed right below this sentence. Read the copy and see if you are guilty of them.
It transforms a vague question into a direct challenge. And it gives them a free reward just for reading.
Yes, the instant gratification.
Right. Even if I have absolutely no intention of buying an English course, I want to read the list of mistakes so I can feel superior. I want the immediate self-satisfaction of saying, well, I certainly do not make that silly error. It provides immediate value.
Which reveals the core filter that every single consumer applies to information. Subconsciously, the reader is constantly asking, YIFM, what is in it for me?
YIM. I love that acronym.
Yeah, what's in it for me? If your title is a poetic riddle about locusts, YIFM is left completely unanswered and they turn the page.
Because there's nothing in it for them.
Exactly. If your title implies there is a list of embarrassing mistakes they need to avoid, well, YFM is satisfied immediately.
But does that mean every successful headline is just a blunt promise of money or status or avoiding fear? Are there degrees to this? Because if we only rely on blunt promises, communication would get incredibly monotonous, right?
That is a very fair question. There is actually a distinct hierarchy of headlines categorized by their sheer tested effectiveness. And you are right about the blunt promises. They sit squarely at the top. The undisputed heavyweight champion of the headline is self-interest.
Self-interest. The WIIM. And the sources give examples that are almost jarring in their directness. Things like another $50 raise or retire at 55.
Right. There is zero clever wordplay there. It is just blunt force.
But it works.
It works because human beings are biologically wired to be interested in themselves. They scan their environment for things that offer health, wealth, popularity, comfort, security.
Survival mechanisms, basically.
Exactly. If you signal that you have one of those things, their evolutionary biology practically forces them to stop and evaluate the claim.
Okay, so self-interest is king. The runner-up in the hierarchy, according to the text, is news.
Yes, news. Announcing something fresh or innovative.
Like new features of the Ford truck or discovered a new kind of hand cleaner.
Right. We have an inherent draw to novelty. We want to be informed about advancements in our world. However, the most potent news headlines usually have a strong undercurrent of self-interest anyway.
How so?
Well, a new kind of hand cleaner implies faster, cleaner hands for the reader. The Ford truck features imply a better driving experience for them. The news serves the self-interest.
I see. It always comes back to YFMM.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have the third category. Coming in a distant and often dangerous third place is curiosity.
Yes, the curiosity trap.
The text gives examples of pure curiosity headlines like Lost, $35,000, or just the aggressive command, speak up.
And the data on curiosity is honestly sobering. While occasionally a curiosity headline can compete, the effectiveness of the average pure curiosity hook is highly doubtful. For everyone that succeeds, a dozen fail entirely.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
If I open the trending tab on YouTube right now, or if I just look at my social media feed, Every single successful piece of content leans heavily on curiosity.
That is true, they do.
Right. Like a thumbnail with a blurred-out face and a title like, I found a secret room in my house, or, you won't believe what happened next. Curiosity clearly works in the modern digital economy, so why does the text say it fails?
Well, we have to define what works actually means in this context.
Yeah, fair.
A blurred-out face might generate a 3-second involuntary click, but does it generate a 20-minute read? Does it generate a sale? Does it build lasting trust with the audience?
Probably not. It usually just feels like clickbait.
Exactly. The sources make a brilliant distinction here regarding time. Suppose you see a headline that arouses pure curiosity. You might engage with it, but only if you have surplus time.
And nobody today has surplus time.
Nobody. We are all incredibly busy. So curiosity relies on the reader being bored.
It relies on boredom. That makes so much sense.
Right. Now contrast that with a headline that offers something you desperately want. Deep self-interest. You will make time to read that copy. You will carve it out of your busy schedule.
Because you need the solution.
Exactly. Curiosity alone is a very weak glue. The moment the reader realizes the content isn't immediately valuable to their own life, the curiosity is satisfied and they bounce. They just leave. And honestly, they often feel manipulated.
Yes, the difference between a cheap parlor trick and an actual transaction of value.
Beautifully put. The text provides a golden rule for this tension. Curiosity combined with news or self-interest is an excellent enhancer.
Like a spice.
Yes, but curiosity by itself is almost never enough. You can use a mystery to pull them in, but you must immediately offer a concrete reward for their time. You absolutely have to bear it.
Okay, so let's unpack the anatomy of how you actually pair those elements. Because if we synthesize the examples of the most successful headlines in the book, we can map out a really specific framework. 4 critical qualities consistently appear in all the winners.
Yes, the framework is very robust. Number 1, self-interest. You have to offer them something they want.
Right, WIIFM.
Number 2, news. Present a fresh angle or a new discovery. Number 3, curiosity, but used as an amplifier, not the main dish. And number 4, suggest a quick and easy way to get the desired result.
Quick and easy. Maximum benefit for minimum effort. But wait, doesn't that directly contradict what we discussed earlier about believability?
How do you mean?
Well, if you promise a massive result quickly and easily, doesn't the reader's skepticism filter instantly block it? Like the $25,000 ad.
It does create a tremendous tension, you are right. The secret sauce that allows quick and easy to bypass that skepticism filter is the implementation of extreme specificity. Specificity breeds believability.
Oh, interesting. Extreme specificity. Let's test that against one of the legendary headlines from the text. The quote is, "How I improved my memory in one evening."
Let's break it down using the framework. Massive self-interest. Yes, people want sharper minds.
Curiosity. Yes, you want to know the author did it?
Quick and easy. Absolutely. In one evening implies minimal effort.
And there is the extreme specificity. It doesn't just say how I improved my memory quickly. Quickly is just marketing speak. It means nothing. But in one evening is a verifiable, concrete unit of time. It feels factual.
Exactly. It feels like a report, not a pitch. The text explicitly cites specific figures as a primary aid to believability.
Let's look at another one. Give me 5 days and I'll give you a magnetic personality. Let me prove it. Free.
Right, so the self-interest is popularity and charisma. The quick and easy element is that 5-day timeline and the fact that the creator is doing all the work, I will give you.
And the risk is completely removed with the free trial part.
Exactly. Look at another classic one. How a full stunt made me a star salesman.
The self-interest there is wealth and status.
Yeah.
The curiosity is just through the roof. What is the stunt? I have to know.
And notice the phrase full stunt. That inherently implies something quick and easy. It is not how 10 years of grueling study made me a salesman. A stunt is a single, replicable action that anyone could do.
It bridges that imagination gap we talked about.
Mm.
The psychology is identical to today's internet. Think about a video title like Learn Coding in 30 Days. Self-interest, quick timeline, highly specific number.
The medium shifted from print to digital, but the underlying mechanisms of human desire, skepticism, and attention remain completely static. We still demand maximum benefit, and we still require specific details to lower our guard.
So if the formula is this clear, right? If direct, specific, self-interested claims work so predictably well, why is there an entire ecosystem of professionals who do the exact opposite?
You are referring to the award-winning delusion.
Yes. It is the ultimate ego check for creatives. The text highlights this spectacular contradiction where the headlines that win prestigious industry awards, the ones celebrated as creative genius by juries of peers, are almost never the ones that actually drive real-world action.
It is wild. The example provided is an award-winning public service headline that read, quote, "Kill my cow for an editor. I should say not."
Which honestly means absolutely nothing to an average person scanning a newspaper.
Intelligent readers were totally baffled by it. They guessed it was some sort of riddle about a farmer refusing to serve steak to a dinner guest.
Which is a logical guess.
But in reality, the ad was part of a campaign promoting medical inspection of cattle, highlighting farmers who resisted health regulations.
And the advertising jury looked at that confusing riddle and thought it was sophisticated.
Because the jury is judging the ad by reading the entire piece of copy. That is the flaw. They read the obscure headline, they read the 5 paragraphs of context below it, and then they congratulate the writer on a clever hidden meaning.
But the public does not read that way. The text calls it the reverse method.
Right, the reverse method.
It is like judging a book by reading the entire manuscript, analyzing the deep thematic resonance, and then retroactively deciding the cover design was brilliant. But the person in the bookstore has to be grabbed by the cover first.
Exactly. If the cover is an obscure riddle, the book never leaves the shelf.
The real-world reader looks at the headline first, and if it doesn't clearly offer them YIAMM, what's in it? For me, they skip the copy entirely.
They use that reverse method every single time.
The text compares that cow riddle to a headline that would never, ever win a creative award. It simply said, quote, "Corn gone in 5 days," or "money back." And it featured a picture of a man's foot.
A creative jury would dismiss that as brutally lowbrow. It lacks any sort of literary merit.
But put yourself in the mind of the guy with agonizing foot pain. He is not looking for a sophisticated metaphor about agriculture. He is looking for relief.
Right, he is in pain.
He sees the words corn gone. Instantly, his self-interest is triggered. He sees the specific timeline in 5 days. Extreme specificity. He sees the risk removal. Or money back.
He is sold in 8 words.
8 words. Clarity utterly destroys cleverness.
It really does. The fatal flaw of peer review in communication is that it rewards obfuscation. It rewards writers for showing off to other writers.
Which is the opposite of good communication.
Exactly. A valid argument presented in blunt, simple language will sway the reader far more effectively than a less valid argument that is beautifully presented. If you have to explain why your hook is clever, the hook has failed.
That is the ultimate metric. Are you writing for your ego or are you writing for the reader?
And if we pull all of these threads together, the 75% rule, the failure of the locust ad, the absolute necessity of specific self-interest, the essence of this entire philosophy is a profound respect for the reader's time.
That is what it boils down to. Time.
Attention is the most fiercely guarded resource in human existence.
Yes, and we completely squander it when we try to be overly clever or when we try to trick people with empty curiosity.
The greatest communicators do not trick people into reading. They do not indulge in poetic riddles. They simply and believably signal exactly how the reader's life will improve if they choose to surrender their time to read further.
YFM, front and center.
Always. A great headline is nothing more and nothing less than a clear promise of value.
A promise of value. I love that. That is exactly what it is. You are looking the reader in the eye and saying, hey, if you stop scrolling, I promise to give you this specific benefit in this specific time frame.
And if you can master that transaction, you win the battle for attention.
Well, there is the inevitable next hurdle, right? You have mastered the headline, you have offered a specific benefit, you have sparked their self-interest, and you've gotten them to actually stop and click.
Right, they're in the door.
But how do you make sure your very first paragraph doesn't instantly bore them to tears and make them click away? I guess that is what we will have to look at next time.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.